it cut off. Like I was saying, we finna get into it. 700 years the Moors ruled over Spain and Europe. This shit happened. This shit happened right before 1940. Well, let me turn my little camera around. It happened in 1942. I mean, it was up to 1942, and you know, if you do your history, 1943 is when Christopher Columbus reached America, South America. So just do the math. The swipe bandito and all that shit. We coming spiritual and all that shit. So today we talk about the Moors and shit. You see my fucked up teeth and shit. No grill and none of that shit. You already know it's SBG and shit.
I know thy
I know my
works
SoundCloud
and
shit right now.
tribulation
I mean, we come in,
poverty,
you feel
but
me?
thou
We're
art
knowledgeable.
rich.
So we coming now. So the Moors ruled for 700
Welcome
years of Europe
to
and all that. We finna break it down. I got 3 little videos, put it together, whatnot. Finna just give a little opinion, all that. So I'm
the
gonna
Black
break it down. I
Excellence
don't like these little
and
intros.
Abundance
But this
channel.
nigga, I don't fuck with it.
I know thy works and tribulation.
We ain't listening to the little intro. We not listening to that, bro. Alright, check it out.
The Moors have a very rich
Alright, so check it out. This is the first video about the Moors.
from the year 711 to around 1492. And they brought enormous learning to Spain for centuries to continue and have an impact on Europe even through today.
The Moors were a group of mostly black Arabs and Hebrews from North Africa. The civilization and cultural achievements were significant in European and Andalusian Empire.
The term Moor was used to describe black people in general during that time, not to describe Arabs or Hebrews or Africans, but just to describe blacks in general.
Reigning Moors was Arabs and blacks, well, Middle Eastern, European Middle Eastern.
You must understand that the Arabs were actually black people, as well as the Hebrews and the Africans. So the term Moor is really synonymous with blacks. And we would like to point out that we know that black is a color. There's no such race as black. However, we use the term for ease of reference only. We know that most black people in America, whether they know it or not, are descendants of the original biblical Hebrews. The Moors brought many advancements to Europe which were not known during that time, including advancements in the sciences.
These scientific achievements came at a dark time in Europe's history and brought an overabundance of positive change to the region as a whole. The achievements and advancements brought by the Moors span across the fields of astronomy, philosophy, and mathematics, as well as architecture, medicine, and others. They brought new technologies and a new numbering system. Much of these advancements can be attributed to an emphasis on education by the Moors. One of the most fascinating examples of the architectural achievements the Moors brought to Europe can be witnessed in the magnificent Alhambra in Granada in Spain. This fascinating edifice is still standing today and is one of Spain's major tourist attractions. The architecture of the building can be attributed to mastering and usage of geometry and ratio concepts applied to its design and construction. The entire building, from foundation to wall art, is based entirely on a single ratio. This creates a sense of perfection in every aspect of the structure. It demonstrates the incredible architectural abilities of the Moors and was well ahead of the times.
These are actual pictures of the site as it stands today. Almost 1,000 years later, these buildings still stand. Built by the Moors in Spain.
The Moors were also famous for their expertise and skill in the field of medicine. Historian Jose Pimienta was quoted saying as that in the medicine sciences, the Moors made remarkable progress and surpassed the Greek-trained Muslim physicians of Persia, Nestorians, and other Eastern Islamic nations. He goes on to say, Moorish medicine was based on experimentation, reasoning, and observation. Moorish physicians used drugs, surgery, and cauterization. Medicine was a highly technical profession, complete with extensive training and a code of conduct. This was introduced during a time when Europe largely relied on a medical system based on superstition.
We're gonna let the video play. I ain't got much to say for this one.
These advancements, including the use of alcohol and proper hygiene, were a complete game changer. Even after the Moors were largely driven out of Europe, European medical schools were built on Moorish foundations, techniques, and research. Surely, the medical advancements of today should pay homage to the Moors and the Islamic societies of old.
Question: would you go to the website for a major brand with more than 200 million users?
The intellectual achievements of the Moors in Spain had a lasting effect. Education was universal in Moorish Spain, while in Christian Europe, 99% of the population was illiterate, and even kings could neither read nor write. At a time when Europe had only 2 universities, the Moors had 17. Located in Alhambra, Cordova, Granada, Juan, Malaga, Seville, and Castile. Universities in Paris and Oxford were established after visits by scholars from Moorish Spain. It was this system of education that seeded the European Renaissance and brought the continent out of the 1,000 years of intellectual and technical gloom of the Middle Ages. In the 10th and 11th centuries, public libraries in Europe were non-existent, while Moorish Spain could boast of more than 70, including one in Cordova that housed hundreds of thousands of books. We do want to make this clear that we say this not to bash Europe or any other continent for that matter, but we do want to give an accurate account of the accomplishments of the Moors. And we do recognize also that the Moors definitely have a reputation of not being the most upstanding of people. However, the accomplishments that they made cannot be taken away. The following is a brief list of some of the other accomplishments that the Moors brought to Europe. The Moors introduced many new crops, including the orange, lemon, peach, apricot, fig, sugarcane, dates, ginger, and pomegranates, as well as cotton, silk, and rice, which remain some of Spain's main products today. The Moorish rulers lived in stupendous palaces, while the monarchs of Germany, France, and England dwelt in big barns, no windows, no chimneys, and with only a hole in the roof for the exit smoke. The Moors introduced paper to Europe and Arabic numerals, which replaced the Roman system. Prior to that, the Romans counted using alphabets and not numbers. At its height, Cordova, the heart of the Moorish territory of Spain, was the most modern city in Europe. The streets were well paved with raised sidewalks for pedestrians. During the night, 10 miles of streets were well illuminated by lamps. This was hundreds of years before there were any paved streets in Paris or a street lamp in London. Cordova had 900 public baths. And you must remember, this was the time before homes had bathtubs and baths. We're told that a poor Moor would go without food rather than soap. All of the information that we say in this video, and all other videos for that matter, can be easily
So that's the little first video about the Moors. So we gonna get straight into the second one. Probably gonna start like, you feel me, put my little 2 cents in right now, but alright, let's get into it. Or I might wait till the third one. I might, you know, see.
A team that spans the world is a team that understands the world.
So I had to do this video over due to copyright issues. My deepest apologies for the unintended infringement. Anyway, if you've already seen this video, please forgive me for the repost, but I think it's an important discussion on African history. Moorish history is probably top 3 as it concerns mainstream African history. The African diaspora can't seem to get enough of it. The Moors represent so many different things to us as Afro-descendant people, but perhaps the most valuable thing this history achieves for us is a sense that Afro-descendant people achieved glory. Why? Well, because Moorish history simply demands respect and cannot be ignored. However, despite all this, Moorish history
It shouts out Africa, but
has always carried
for me, Black Indian, Black Native America, and all that. You feel me? My American niggas stand up.
Constantly challenged. So today,
T
I
yellow
would
as
like to
fuck
get a
though.
better understanding about who the Moors were and talk about
The whiteness just gonna come in. You know what I'm saying? They come in. They'll come in. It's gonna be white soon. We getting in this more shit though. Feel me? Swipe Bandito and all that. You know what I'm saying? Like, man, sit down in my classroom. You'll be great, man. I'm trying to tell
What up,
niggas, bro.
Africa? This is Swamp here, and welcome back to another video of African history, culture, and worldview.
Like I
Supporting
said,
this channel on Patreon,
Black Native
I'll be
American, but
creating
shouts out
these videos
Africa.
and
Shouts out
supporting
Africa and all that, man.
If you'd like access to full courses and sources, or you simply want to show your support, you may do so by clicking the Patreon link in the description box below. The term Moor itself consistently referred to Muslims from North Africa, whether they were referring to the various Amazigh populations or other Africans who originated further south in places like Senegal, Guinea, or Mali. Despite what we in the diaspora may think, the term Moor is very broad and it's been used interchangeably between these two populations, and it was never used exclusively to refer to either of them in the literature. In some occasions, you'd even hear Europeans differentiating between the so-called white Moors and black Moors. There are many Moorish dynasties we can discuss, but my focus will be the Almoravids and the Almohads, so please keep that in mind. When the African diaspora thinks about a Moor, they tend to think of the black soldiers or rulers who conquered Spain, but we hardly ever refer to the names of the actual dynasties who accomplished this. It's important to be specific when speaking about Moorish history. When Islam spread across North Africa in the 7th century, many Africans converted and created their own Islamic armies to further the cause. These armies later became known as the Moors to various Europeans. It may surprise some of us to learn that black soldiers have been used in the Middle East since ancient times. They were not new. It was only because of the mobilization of Islam and the great number in which various Africans joined forces that they then became known as Moors later on in history. Under various Persian rulers, Africans were employed as mercenaries in armies to help conquer and control new regions. Africans in Nubia specifically had a world-renowned reputation for being excellent archers, and their services were in high demand. Even before the Arabs swept across North Africa, black soldiers were present in their armies. One of the earliest mentions of a black soldier, or what Europeans would later refer to as a Moor, was named Washi. Washi lived during the time
Hey, that
of
nigga
Muhammad,
Washi with the
and
shits
it
and
was
all
said
that on
that he
Double O.
distinguished himself in battle, especially during the
Hey, that
capture
nigga
of Mecca.
ugly as fuck though.
The truth is, in the early days of Islam,
Hey, that
Arabs
nigga.
began to
Hey,
extend
wait,
their
we
hand
gon'
to enslave
Nah,
people,
we ain't.
whether they were from the Middle East or North Africa. They
That
began
nigga
to
fit.
entice them
That's
to
what I'm
join
saying.
their armies, and in return, they would gain freedom. This was an excellent strategy by the Arabs to gain a huge loyal following, and it greatly diversified their military ranks. Over time, this strategy began to be used amongst the Amazigh populations who converted to Islam. In the 9th century, North African slave armies became more desirable as ambitious Amazigh governors sought them out to create autonomous principalities. They believed these soldiers from Inner Africa would be loyal to them in totality because they didn't come from the ethnic group of the governor, and so was not invested in the needs and concerns of the majority population. The North African caliphs themselves began to adopt this tradition to comfortably enforce their power. and not worry about any Arab or Amazigh dissidents. In other words, the recruitment of black men further south became the very backbone of Moorish supremacy. Now, it's important to understand that black soldiers were always used in Islamic armies even before the 9th century, but they did not become supreme, if you will, until about this time. For example, under the Umayyad dynasty, the first emir of Cordoba in Spain, Abd al-Rahman I, who came to the throne in 756, was known to have kept a large personal guard of black troops. He founded the Muslim dynasty that ruled a large portion of Spain for nearly 3 centuries, and all his successors used black soldiers, especially to maintain order. Now, here's where a lot of the confusion comes in. People may look at early Moorish history and say, well, the Moors were black people. However, we can't ignore the presence of Arab or Amazigh soldiers. In fact, at various times in Moorish history, there were more Arab and Amazigh soldiers than black soldiers, especially before the 9th century. If there is to be any value in the statement of saying the Moors were black people, we have to keep in mind.
Yeah, we gotta put the Arabs in it too.
Because when
I ain't
discussing
gonna lie,
events
the
of
Arabs and the
Moorish
blacks,
history, we can only use it to express how
European
black
one.
soldiers were used to reinforce the Sultan's power. When the 9th century arose, the face of the Moors began to change fairly quickly. Ahmad Tulin, who came to power in 884, the first independent ruler of Muslim Egypt, began to rely heavily on black soldiers, most of which came from Sudan, many of them Nubian. Upon his death, he's said to have possessed 24,000 so-called white soldiers and 45,000 black soldiers. In essence, his army consisted of black men.
I mean, this
His son
nigga
was
fly with
protected
it.
by
He
1,000
fly with
black
it, you feel me?
soldiers alone.
He, you know what
One
I'm saying?
chronicler had this to say: wearing black cloaks and black turbans, so that a watcher could fancy them to be a black sea spreading over the face of the earth because of the blackness of their color and of their garments, with the glitter of their shields, of the chasing on their swords, and of the helmets under their turbans, they made a really splendid sight.
And shit, fuck.
Used the most black soldiers and had rulers who were indistinguishable from the various African ethnic groups further south, like in the case of Yaqub al-Manzur of the Almohads, whom I consider the greatest Moorish leader in the history of Muslim Spain. His mother was a black woman believed to be from either Mali or Senegal. One of the primary reasons for the rapid growth of black soldiers was the need for North African Amazigh rulers to have complete control over their soldiers and not be challenged by any intermediate power or opposing ethnic loyalties that would come from Arabs or other Amazigh clans. It would be very difficult for black soldiers originating from the interior of Africa to rally up the local Arab or Amazigh populace because of the ideological, social, and political divisions between them. It was black men who served to maintain the ruler in his palace, protect the capital, and uphold imperial authority. The Moorish tradition of black soldiers continued to develop in Morocco centuries after their expulsion from Spain in 1492. In the 17th century to the early 18th century, the Sultan of Morocco, Moulay Ismail, made great use of black soldiers to solidify his power. He himself was the son of an Arab prince and a black woman. Moulay Ismail felt the immediate threat to his rule would come from the Arabs, Amazighs, and the Turks in Algeria. He assembled the largest army in Moroccan history, consisting of 250,000 black soldiers, allowing him to exert great authority through which he was able to undermine the power and influence of local tribal groups in his nation. Moulay went even further by demanding that the other Moroccan ethnic groups turn over their weapons and their horses to his all-black Moorish army. Our agency,
Them ancestors, boy, them ancestors, boy.
cannot be denied, as it so often has. There just needs to be balance when speaking about the Moors. We need to be specific about time periods and dynasties because diversity did indeed exist. Moorish history is akin to a blanket. We just have to identify our specific thread that makes up a part of the whole. Well, I'm all out, guys. If you like these videos and want to help in its continued production, consider supporting the home team on patreon.com. The link is in the description.
We finna get into the last video.
ancestors.
All right, what I said in the beginning about what happened after the 700 reign of the Moors. This this lady she finna talk her shit right now.
What happened in 1492 before Christopher Columbus decided to sail the ocean blue?
Real shit. What happened? You know what I mean? What happened? We gonna get into that right now. You know what I'm saying? This the last little video of the first segment of the classroom and shit. T fucked up, bro. Yo, bitch still want me, bro. T feels like James Franco, bitch.
Today, I wanted to talk about the Moors, what happened in Spain, and most importantly, what happened in 1492 before Christopher Columbus decided to sail the ocean blue. Okay, so back in the day, around 410 AD, a Germanic tribe of Goths, more specifically the Visigoths,
So them Goths was alright. Some Goths.
and they ended up settling in Spain, where they ruled for about 300 years.
We ain't hating on the whites, bro. We ain't hating on the Goths.
The Dark Ages, which is like a full-out decline of culture and education. 99% of Europe was actually illiterate during this time, even kings, and they
The
didn't
Dark
have
Ages.
on a regular basis either. So the
Them Dark
story
Ages,
is
boy.
there was a merchant by the name of Ilian or Julian who lived in Tangiers amongst the Berber people, but actually traveled back and forth to Spain and did business with Visigoth King Roderick. So when his wife died, he basically told the king, hey, I have a daughter now. I won't be able to travel back and forth. I can't leave my daughter at home by herself. And the king said, hey, let your daughter come here. She can live at court and I'll educate her, right? So, of course, Julian was all for that. He ended up letting his daughter come live at court with King Roderick, and she was raped. Some accounts even say that she was pregnant, but either way, when Julian found out about this, he was infuriated. He came back, took his daughter, and went straight to the Moors. Okay, so the Moors can be described as a mixed group of Muslim North Africans, West Africans, even Sub-Saharan Africans, Arabs, and Berbers, which is a mixed group in itself. So about 7 years after the death of Muhammad, Muslim Arabs actually invaded North Africa, and Islam spread throughout North and West Africa. There were many different dynasties and Islamic states, and they all had different leaders and agendas and belief systems. So yes, they were under the Moorish Empire and they were considered Moors. They just can't be counted as the same people. So historically, when you're speaking about Moors, it depends on what time and what area you're speaking about. For the purposes of this video, I'm mainly referring to the Umayyad dynasty, who were the ones who initially invaded Spain, as well as the Almohads, who later came to rule in Spain. So back to Julian. So basically, he wanted revenge on the Visigoths, so he went to the Moors and basically gave them the game. He told them that Spain was weak. He gave them ships, and he led them straight into Spain and basically helped them defeat the Visigoths relatively easily. A quote, if I may. The reins of their horses were as fire. Their faces were black as pitch. Their eyes shone like burning candles. Their horses were swift as leopards, and the riders fiercer than a wolf in a sheepfold at night. The noble Goths were broken in an hour, quicker than a tongue can tell. Oh, luckless Spain, end quote. So the Moors actually brought Spain out of the Dark Ages. They introduced science. They encouraged study and education for all in areas like astronomy, physics, mathematics, chemistry, geography, art, philosophy. At the time, Europe only had 2 universities, and the Moors had over 17. They had 70 libraries. They had streets that were actually paved with raised sidewalks and 10 miles of street that were lit by lamps. And this is hundreds of years before Paris ever had a paved street and before London ever had a street lamp. They had over 900 bathhouses. And remember, I told y'all that Europeans didn't bathe on a regular basis. It's actually said that even a poor Moor would rather have a bar of soap than soup. So the Great Mosque of Cordoba is actually still one of the architectural wonders of the world today. Everyone wants a Moorish archway in their house nowadays, right? The architecture alone is incredible. The Moors also introduced paper to Spain, as well as Arabic numbers. And they also introduced new crops like oranges, lemons, apricots, figs, peaches, sugarcane, dates, ginger, pomegranate, cotton, silk, and even rice. The Moors also brought a lot of knowledge and information from other countries like China, India, and Arabia. They brought different inventions like the compass and the astrolabe. This was known as the golden age of the Moors, okay? Their influence on Spain brought along the Renaissance of Europe 100%. They will not teach you that in school. So the Moors and the Christians were basically fighting back and forth for the entire 700-year rule of the Moors. In 1184, there came to be a new caliph that went by the name of Yaqub al-Mansur. Now, he became ruler when his father was killed in Portugal. He basically vowed to avenge his father's death, and he ended up defeating a lot of Christian cities and taking like 3,000 captives back to Africa. Now, when he was going to Africa, Spanish Christians took advantage and they basically tried to take back some of the Moorish cities. So when he heard about this, he came back, he defeated them again. This time he took them and actually sold them into slavery in Africa. So they tried it again, yet another time. He crushed them so hard, hit them so hard that they stopped. That was the last time they tried him. Unfortunately, he ended up getting sick and he passed away in about 1199. So by the 15th century, the Christians had become strong enough to basically take back most of the territories from the Moors, and the last stronghold was left standing in Granada. In 1479, Isabella I of Castile married Ferdinand II of Aragon. I don't know, maybe you've heard of them. They're actually known as the first king and queen of Spain, and their marriage unified Christian Spain. They are most famous for the Reconquista, which was basically the brutal conversion of Jews and Muslims into Christianity across Spain. They're also known for hiring good old Christopher Columbus. So they actually knew exactly where he was going and they knew exactly what he was going to do. He took Moorish navigators with him, and he had a contract that basically promised him 10% of all the goods that he found, a noble title, and governorship of any land that he encountered. And you know the rest. When he returned back to Spain, he brought gold, he brought treasure, and he brought captives. So they were very pleased, and by 1493, Pope Alexander VI actually signed the Bull Inter Caetera, which was a decree that gave them permission to conquer, colonize, convert, and enslave the native people of the Americas. And yeah, we pretty much know how that ends. Fun fact, did you know that Christopher Columbus actually made 4 trips to the Americas? The first one we know was a big success. He brought back a lot of goods and people. So they let him come back the second time. However, when he arrived in the Americas, the the second time, he found that a lot of his men had been slaughtered by the native people. So he founded a second colony, but when he went back to Spain, he actually didn't have as much. They were not pleased, but they let him come back a third time. He found that even his own Spanish people and the native people did not like his rule because they were getting so many complaints. The king and queen actually sent for him to be brought back in chains. When he returned to Spain, the charges were dropped. He actually convinced them to let him go a fourth time, and they agreed because of their greed to let him go a fourth time. They instructed him to come north. He did not listen to their instructions. He went back down towards Central America. He ended up getting his ships taken, and he was actually stranded in Jamaica for like a year, which is crazy. Anyway, long story short, he died poor and kind of a loser, and I mean, he really didn't discover anything. So the remaining Moors in Spain were actually kicked out and dispelled, and eventually all over Europe as the Crusades continued. Today, the term Moor is used to describe Arab people that reside in Mauritania and Mali. What happened to those Moors that were described as being black as pitch, that even the most handsome one was as black as a cookie bean? Where are they now? Anyway, thank you so much for watching my video. I really appreciate it. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Click that little bell thing that everybody always tells you to click so you can know when I upload a new video. And I will see you guys next time. Peace.
That was the last video on Double O's. You heard it. That's basically what this classroom lesson was about today on Golf Testament. You heard it. The Moors ruled for 700 years, and even though they ruled for 700 years, you feel me? Good feet though, you feel me? That's the dub, but it was Moorish navigators who told us. I mean, shout out my Europeans though and my Spanish though. It was the Moors who told the Europeans and the Spanish when they won, and you feel me, the wars in around 1492. That you feel me, they gave them the trade route back to the Americas, and feel me, we gonna get into the people of the Americas, like who they were. You feel me, in the next couple of vids or whatever. We're gonna have some slight vids too, but you feel me, it was blacks and Asians in the Americas and shit, pretty much. But yeah, you heard it, shit. That's why Bandito out and shit. You already know, get that knowledge and shit, you feel me? Go research your own shit. But yeah, 700 years, bitch.